The protagonist for Last of Us Part 3 is a touchy subject with two possible answers, one of which could send the internet into a Gamergate-level disaster. But disregarding personal feelings on The Last of Us Part 2, which mine shall remain ambiguous throughout this video, let's discuss the pros and cons of each candidate. Starting with Ellie, the popular choice by a mile, her strengths include being the arguable main character of the franchise, her iconic look for marketing material, and her open-ended conclusion in the last game. This is a safe choice and what everyone expects, and she certainly has more story to tell. No matter if she's the protagonist or not, she's definitely going to be in the game to some degree. The problem with Ellie is that immediately picking back up with her kind of lessens the impact of the second game's ending, where even the writers never decided where it was she was going. So hopping right back into her shoes would feel kind of hollow, and finding a way to build up to meeting Ellie in The Last of Us Part 3 would be a Blades of Chaos level moment, to borrow a phrase from the sister series. Also, with her being the obvious pick, doesn't that make her the less interesting one? Love or hate Last of Us 2, you must admire the balls Druckmann had to take one of the most guaranteed surefire hits in video game history and roll a fistful of D20 with it. That's what makes Neil Druckmann's writing so interesting. He's willing to take risks with it. He's not keen to placate and sift out more sequels. And to liken Part 2 to The Last Jedi, do you really want to play it safe with a Rise of Skywalker level sequel where they apologetically fulfill fans' wishes, but it ends up feeling like fan service? The second contender is Abby. Her strengths are following the tradition of shifting the protagonist to a previously playable character, having a clear path for her character, and having Lev along for the ride, who's just the best, but I promise no personal feelings. This is the unexpected choice that would rattle a few cages to say the least, and Naughty Dog has to know that continuing on with this character is a big risk for them. Literally, I mean some freak might actually kill them. And to help placate that freak, I don't actually see this happening. Abby's arc feels definitive. She came into the story, achieved her goals, faced the consequences of her actions, changed her ways, and left the story. Like, that's it. That's how you do a character arc. They wrapped it all up in one game. And sure, they could come up with some new threat or challenge for her and Lev to overcome. Maybe Lev finds out he's also immune, and he and Abby have to go on the run from the Fireflies. But introducing new plot beats isn't this franchise's style. It's The Last of Us Part 2, because it's the second part of these characters' stories. And rather than being added to that character pool, Abby just felt like one of the most prominent storytelling tools in video game history, rather than a new star of the show. So it seems like Ellie is the apparent choice. Sure, there are drawbacks to this idea, but every idea is going to have some downsides, and it's not like there's a real third option. You can't just make the next game about someone we've never heard of and call it Part 3. But what if there was someone in The Last of Us Part 2 who could be a prime candidate for the protagonist, with a clear motivation and a fresh way to look at this horrifyingly beautiful world? What about Dina and Ellie's son, JJ? Picture this. A 20-year time skip leaves Dina dead or on death's door. A mournful JJ discovers he has a second mother, and takes it upon himself to find her for whatever reason, be it attending her girlfriend's funeral or as a closure for the mother he lost. He sneaks out of Jackson County based on a rumor and begins a nationwide trek for Ellie, possibly meeting a rugged old traveler with a closed heart, as a sort of reflection and booking to the first game. This gives us the fresh perspective of someone who's lived their whole lives behind the walls of Jackson, and adds a new terrifying unfamiliarity to the world. Of course he needs a companion, because these games are nothing without their quick back and forth dialogues outside of cutscenes. So why not a weary old criminal who sees the light of the world again through their travels? It also gives you a fantastic moment for Ellie's eventual reveal. In one shot, it could convey how brutally cruel this world has treated her in the time we've been apart. Of course, all that is total fanfiction, and whatever Neil and the team come up with will be a million times better than anything I could ever think of. But out of all my hopes for Part 3, the only one I truly care about is that it ends the franchise, or at least the main series. I think stretching this story into 4 parts would start to feel unnatural. That's not to say abandon this world or anything, but give a definitive end to the Immunity saga, and show me another story in this macabre world. Whenever Last of Us Part 3 comes out, no matter who I'm playing as, make sure that that installment is the last of them.